Hi, I'm Morgan. Welcome to Way of Living podcast, where you will hear empowering women talking about how you shouldn't feel stuck in an unfulfilling career and how to follow your dreams. Life is short, live it to the fullest, and I hope you will feel inspired by their stories. Caught up in the usual uni gap year job that many 20-something-year-olds experience, Fiona Moss didn't take the time to think about what she truly wanted to do. After a few years in her job, that's when she realized how what she was doing was unfulfilling to her. During this reflecting time, her boyfriend became very ill and everything shifted. Priorities are not the same when we realize how life is so precious and fragile. Today, Fiona organized seminars and one-to-one life coaching sessions. In this episode, she talks about how she swapped her life in a corporate world for a career in coaching to help people live a life they really want by teaching them how to put themselves first in a healthy manner. Hi Fiona, how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. How are you?
Good, we finally get to meet during this complicated time. So I would like you to talk about yourself and what you do, because you're a life coach, and I'd love to hear more about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Firstly, thank you very much for having me on here. As you say, I am a life coach. My work predominantly focuses on individuals who are in a point of their life where they want to create change, but they feel stuck in many different ways. So I support them to create a stress-free, fulfilled life. And that's what's really important for me, that my clients feel fulfilled by creating the change that they truly want, regardless of life's challenges. Because I always say that because it's so important to realize that you can create change, even if it feels like the world's against you, even if it feels like life is throwing things, that are challenging and that feel like you can't overcome them. Ultimately, you have control over so much more than you don't have control over. And that's what I really want to work through with my clients, is ensuring that they can create better clarity about, firstly, what they want, therefore how they can get it, but also how can they overcome some of those challenges that life throws us. So I work predominantly with clients one-to-one. And I have also set up a platform called You First, which is aim is to inspire individuals to prioritize themselves in order to create the life that they want and feel the most fulfilled they want and be the best version of themselves. And I talk about putting yourself first in a way that it's not selfish, because actually when you put yourself first and you become that best version, you're actually a better version of yourself for everyone else around you as well. You can give more when you put yourself first and actually look after yourself and make sure that you are that best version. So under the You First umbrella, I, in the normal world, run events and talks and things like that. But through lockdown, I've started doing more webinars, so taking a lot of it online. And I've just recently run the first You First Immersive Action course, where we focused on helping people create clarity, create action, and create change. That was a 4-day immersive course, and that's something that I'm looking to roll out again later on in the year. So yeah, there's a few things going on. I also do writing and etc. And yeah, that's kind of where I am in a nutshell.
When you talk about webinar at the moment, or when you do events in the normal life, what do you mean? What do you do during those times, and what's your role during those seminars and stuff like that?
So when I do webinars and events and things, I've done it in different ways, whereby I've had brunches and I've spoken and empowered people. I just want to bring people together to create that space and create that environment which allows people to put themselves first, and we will have discussions about how that is possible. So the very first one was all about building your self-worth. Then I've had panel events with people, and we normally speak about particular topics. So whether that's about resilience or about confidence, about creating clarity, about creating change, whatever that may be, and I will bring experts in. So I will always put a lens on it and a topic on it. So whether that's an event about resilience, or a webinar about change management, or a webinar about being the master of your time, All of that will have a specific topic, but equally all of them will have the core message of how can you better understand and be more aware and have more clarity about the control that you can have on your life. And actually, by taking that control, how can you actually create the change that you want?
You're very young still. I was wondering if you've ever, like you've always done this, because I know it's quite new. You've been doing life coaching for a year. And I was wondering what you did before, and maybe if you could talk about what you studied before life coaching.
Yeah, I'm glad you said I'm quite young, because I'm 30 this year. And you know, when you're like, oh, that's quite a big stage. But yeah, so before life coaching, I did the usual, like university, did things around it, had a gap year before uni, after uni, you know, traveled, experienced things like that. And then went on to do a graduate scheme in a very large supermarket as a buyer, and kind of just, it fell on from there. Sort of very corporate role, you know, there's this very typical thing people say, you know, I did the corporate thing and then I went into life coaching, and, you know, it sounds a bit of a cliche, but I did do that, and it was very busy. And it was just something that I wasn't particularly aligned to. You know, I'd come home and be like, what's this for? It felt like it had no value, no real value to me, no real meaning, and I would get stressed. And I'm the sort of person that wants to put my all into something, and it's very difficult to do that. But when you're not particularly passionate about something, so that was one side of it. And I kind of just trundled along. I thought that's what everyone expected of me, so I just kind of do it. I didn't really think outside the box and realize there were different opportunities. I got caught up in it all, and there's very little time sometimes to just step back and go, wait, what do I actually want to be doing? What interests me? All well and good, like that happened, and I probably would still be in that role. But actually, my boyfriend got very ill during this sort of time period, and that put a whole new lens on the situation, whereby, you know, I was really stressed out. I had like work, which was like stressful, but you know, you go into your social life and like whatever, you ignore it. And in a way, that's a really difficult area to be in. I talk to my clients about this a lot, because that's like, I'm fine. You know, it's not a real dramatic problem. I'm fine. I can cope with it. And sometimes that's a bit more dangerous, because it's harder to move out of that, because, you know, everything is okay. But then when my boyfriend got very ill, as I say, my social life, I had no social life. There was equally a huge amount of stress in that, if not more. And it made me just really reflect on my work and think, like, why am I doing this? Why am I leaving something which I can't control, as I spoke about before? You know, I can't control the fact that he's ill, but I can control other things. I can control the job I'm in. I can control how I look after myself, the fact that I'm running around, the fact that I'm not fulfilled. I can control all of that, and I can look after myself a little bit more to be able to be better for him, and to be in a better position that I can be the best version of myself for him and in his situation. But it reached a point where I got extremely burnt out, extremely tired, you know, emotional, anxious, all of those things. And I just decided I had to stop. I just decided that enough was enough, really. So I took time off work, and in that time I sort of decided, yeah, okay, I need to step away from this. Not with a lens of, you know, this was a terrible thing that happened, me working in that corporate job, but just it wasn't right for me. And I learned a lot from it, and I'm so grateful I've done it, because it's given me so much perspective. It's given me skills. It's given me an awareness of a world that is very different to the world that I work in now. And it's given me many, many things that I take into my work now. So I'm very grateful for it. But equally, I recognize, and I'm so happy that I recognize that, you know, that wasn't right for me, and I needed to make that change. And yeah, it was really hard to do so, because one, you're fighting against the expectation of other people, which I mentioned before, but equally you are also that when you're not entirely sure what that means, what that change means, what fulfillment means to you, it's quite difficult then to understand what you're doing. So sometimes it is about taking a leap of faith, but going with your gut. And I spoke a lot about the course I did the other week about this, the idea of going with your gut. You know, it's not actually just the saying, it is actually science. And listening to that part of the brain, which is actually fundamentally driving your decisions, is really, really important. So deep down, I really knew that. And once I did and committed to myself, it was the best decision I made.
How long did it take you to actually take the first step and say, okay, I'm overwhelmed, I'm not happy? So from that point, when you realized that, to the point where you quit and you changed completely everything, how long did it take you?
I'd probably say quite a long time.
Mm.
I can't say for exact time length, but I reckon probably about a year, because I do remember that I had conversations with my family and whatever, like I need to change, and amidst all of that there's a lot of emotion. So there's, you just think like, you get really emotional, I just need to stop, and then you kind of step back and you think, okay, no, maybe not. So I worked through it for quite a long time, and it just all built up and built up and built up. I'm the sort of person that throws a lot of stuff at myself constantly. Probably in that period of time to my own detriment. But I did my flat up, like completely redid my flat. I ran and trained for a marathon and all those things. But with all the stress around it, it just added more and more and more stress on myself, on my mental health, and my body. And it was just an accumulation of things. And I think during that sort of year, I just got more and more overwhelmed, and this idea that I need to make a change was sort of lingering in the background. And then it wasn't until I think it was just like a couple of weeks after the marathon and things, and I just had that extra space to just think, I haven't got that, like I know I need to stop. And then it was just a case of one day I just decided, I sat down and I wrote down, like, what do I actually want? What's important to me? Just a simple exercise like that. And I just decided I need to make a change now.
So did you actually have, so people, like when you talk to your family about your plan and you needed to change, did you have support from them?
Yeah, I did. I feel like there was a sense of, I come from quite a traditional family. Where I'd say like my brother and my mum were kind of like, yeah, sure. But my dad didn't really understand, especially as like I wasn't going into something that was very traditional or structured, or, he understood what I was doing before because it's an extremely well-known company and that made sense, etc., etc. But they also recognized that I needed to change. And I think that was more important than, whether they understood or not. So yeah, I think one of the hardest things, and I see it with all my clients, literally every single one, is the worry about what other people think and the need for their approval. And that is probably, if I could say one thing that holds people back more than anything, it would be that. Even if people think, I don't need other people's approval. If they look at why they do a job that doesn't fulfill them, if they look at why they're living somewhere that doesn't, if they look at why they're running around and doing stuff for other people and they don't have time to do stuff for themselves, they realize that probably that's all of those decisions are rooted in the fact that they want the approval of other people. They want other people to love them. They want other people to say, well done, we're so proud of you, or whatever it is, rather than actually saying well done to themselves or actually being proud of what they've done themselves. And I think that's where the main issue and the main tension lies with creating change and actually doing the work to understand what does fulfill them, because what does fulfill them might go completely against what is going to allow for that external approval. And I think sometimes for some people, that's where they struggle to take that leap.
I wanted to know if you were coached yourself before you got into it, and did you have a training, and how does this work?
Before I started being a coach, no, I didn't have a coach then. But subsequently, as soon as I started coaching, I did. And I have done since. And I think that's where sometimes, and I hear it when people are PTs or whatever, they find it really weird that a coach would have a coach or a PT would have a PT, or, and whatever. And actually, I think it's a huge part of your development as a coach, as a PT, as a photographer, whatever it may be, actually working with somebody else in that industry who can develop your skills, who can put a different lens on your work, who can make you think in a different way. And I think that's fundamentally really important. In terms of my own sort of journey, so initially, and I think this is where it's really interesting, and I think your own personal development, actually played a huge part in your work as well. Because as I sort of spoke about before, you know, when I was going through that period where I was completely sort of burning out and overwhelmed and anxious and everything, it would have a huge effect on my health as well. You know, just the physical signs of stress. And what I thought was really interesting was that, you know, even during that time, I would still exercise, I would still eat well, etc., etc. And it wasn't necessarily about, my health was not just tied just to my nutrition and my exercise. But I was so stuck on this idea that, you know, there are so many people in the world who don't understand nutrition, who don't understand exercise, and just like that simple change, they could save themselves so much. You know, there's so many problems, so many lifestyle problems, so many issues. You know, it could have a huge knock-on effect to, you know, our NHS, all those things. And I was so conscious that these people just needed more education. They just needed those little bit more lifestyle tips to help them in their diet and their exercise. So I was very much stuck on that. Not stuck on it, but that was almost like my entry point. You know, I was very, very interested in wellness and etc. And I still am. Then ultimately, but as I transgressed, I moved through my career. Like, I started as a health coach. That was fundamentally what I started as. But, you know, as I touched on there, in the sense that even though during that time I ate really well, I exercised really well, you know, that wasn't a problem. But ultimately, my health was still still being affected. And I realized how much of it is more like exercise and diet, that our interaction with both of those things and many other things, our relationships or whatever, are all ultimately a result of our mindset, and all ultimately a result of our thought patterns and our belief systems and our clarity about who we are, what we want, what is holding us back, our limiting beliefs. So my work naturally transgressed more into life coaching. And I think that is natural for many different people, you know, the way your career evolves. So fundamentally, that is where I am now. And I focus a lot more on helping people create that clarity, helping people really understand, as I said before, you know, what they want, what is holding them back, how can we understand what their mindset is, and how can we shift that if needs be, in order to realize that people can create more, and they can create what they really want to create if they choose to. So it is about, as I say, fundamentally, that is where it's shifted in. But as I say, initially, I started as a health coach, which I think actually fundamentally is such an important role. And I know that there are many different like health coaches and things who are slowly transitioning, so like into surgeries and GPs and things like that, which I think is amazing, because I think that is such an important point. You know, lifestyle medicine is so important to the fundamental health of our population, or, you know, the global population, really. You know, if we can tackle that. But the core of my coaching is to go deeper than that, is to go one deeper and understand how is that mindset affecting all of those things. Because I truly believe that if you have the right mindset, you can, you know, choose about your diet, you can choose your lifestyle, you can choose if you are able to prevent a preventable disease. And actually, the real core of my coaching, I talk about preventing the preventable, and that is so important to me, because there is so much that happens. You know, there are diseases and things that happen, which we can't prevent, and it's, you know, that's life as well. But there is so much more that we can prevent, and that is where, you know, I really believe that if you can really take control of your life through better understanding and clarity of your capabilities, and shifting those mindsets, then really you can prevent the preventable.
So when you started a year ago, how did it work to get your first client? How did you find it, and how did you get your first clients to trust you, to trust your ability?
So it's weird when you say it, because fundamentally this journey's been years, but I left my old job 2 years ago. So that sort of time period has been quite a transition. So I spent a lot of time understanding what I wanted to do. I spent a part of that time doing my health coaching qualification and my coaching qualifications and things like that. And I would say it was just over a year ago then that I had my first client. And I worked with my own coach on really developing and understanding exactly what my own core message was, like getting really clear about what I am, what makes me stand out as a life coach, and just what basically is my USP in a way. And I don't mean that in a say like a marketing thing, just understanding what I stand for, because ultimately as well, particularly something like coaching, it really is a two-way relationship. Because I need to know that I can help the person, that I am right in the sense that what I believe and what I coach about, that person requires it as well. So it's really important for me to find my own voice. So I did a lot of work on finding my own voice, and I still do. And I'm still going deeper and deeper and deeper and getting clearer and clearer and clearer about what is important to me and what fundamentally is driving my coaching. You look at somebody like Brené Brown, for example. She talks about shame. She's a shame researcher. And that is just one, in a way, small topic. Many, many things in terms of like life coaching and the self-development world. But she's a specialist in that. And I think, that is what really resonates to her. That's where she, really means something to her. That's where if we can tackle shame, we can tackle so many things. We can tackle the idea of being more vulnerable in order to be more courageous. So I think no matter what level you are, the deeper you can go and the more specific you can be about what is really important to you, what drives your work, what drives you as an individual, and how can ultimately you use that to support your client base. So the more and more I work on myself, that is fundamentally how I attract clients in a way. That is how I speak about topics that therefore resonate with the people who need to hear those conversations and those particular subjects. And that's where it's really important for me to get clear on exactly what my messaging is, because the clearer I get, the more it resonates with those people who need to hear it. There is so much information out there in the world. All the information we need is out there in the world really right now. Unless we're trying to really progress something, unless we are trying to invent something, it is there for all of us. Whether we want to lose weight, whether we want to change a career, whether we want to go and set up a business, whatever it is, the information is out there. The opportunity is out there. All of it is on the internet, or there's coaches, or there's schools available for you to do it. Sometimes we don't hear it because we're not ready to hear it. And it's about how can I speak to those people who need to hear it or are at that stage where they're ready to hear it. So that's why I want to use my platform through You First to offer that information, to provide that stepping stone for people to say, maybe I'm not ready right now to go into one-to-one coaching, but I want to hear some of this work. And when they're ready, when they're going through that work, something will click, just like myself, something will click there's an innate to them. And it's when they're ready to take that step. It does also mean that sometimes we do have to be courageous to take that step. It doesn't just happen. But it is around really the content of my work. So yeah, my clients have come from many different avenues, whether that is been through my own communities, business groups, friends of friends, many different things. So yeah, it's interesting where people do come up, but it is fundamentally about speaking to people and just showing them that, there is an opportunity here. There is an opportunity for you to really understand that you can create this change, first of all, but equally that, you can understand what that change means for you by doing that work. And once you really do that work and you go deeper and you understand what does fulfill you and what do you want, it's so worth it. But you have to be ready as well to take that step.
Yeah. So you're saying that every life coach actually have a specialized in something in particular then. So what would you...
I wouldn't say every life coach, no. I'd say it very much depends. I mean, for me, that's really important. It's really, really important. Some life coaches are a lot more broad, and they're quite happy to help you with tapping into, maybe your financials and your relationships and your health or whatever, a general life coach. for me, it's really important for me to understand what is important to me. And I think the more that I become more fulfilled and clear on that, it will really reflect in what I, how I communicate my message and how I communicate with individuals. At this point, preventing the preventable and really being clear that we are in control of our change and we are in control of what we create is fundamentally at the core of what I speak about. That doesn't mean that I don't have conversations with my clients necessarily about their lifestyle, their relationships and things, but that is at the core of what I speak about. Each life coach is, very different. Each life coach has their own way of working, and actually, I think that's great because, as I said before, this is a relationship. When you're coaching, it really is a relationship. That's why it's so important to find somebody that you resonate with, you get along with, you click with. It doesn't have to be your best mates, but it's how can that person bring the best out of you. And that is fundamentally why you want life coaching. You want to take that step. You want someone to push you and bring the best out of you. But again, it's a relationship. So it's making sure that the style of coaching that they have is right for you.
So I've been talking to a few life coaches before, and they told me that for the first few clients, or even as part of their training, they had to work for free. And I was wondering if you worked for free, if you still do work for free after a year, and how long did it take you to actually start making money?
Yeah, I think it's such an individual thing. I think as part of my course, they really they advocated for you to do that as part of your training whilst you were still whilst you were still doing the course. So I did do some calls actually initially with, say, like my fellow students, which is your first sort of step. I mean, again, this is so individual depending on your course, depending on you as an individual.
Yeah.
And then I remember doing, did I do a 2-month coaching program with a couple of people for free? And I think that was a really good learning curve as well for you to or for me to develop skills, develop systems, develop how I want to work, really listen. And I think a lot of it is with practice. A lot of it is, and when they talk about coaching, it is about getting coaching hours under your belt as well, because the more you work with clients, the more you understand how you work as a coach, how different people listen to you, how you can adapt accordingly, different resources that work really well. Even different, just like administrative things, what's easy for you, what's easy for clients, doing all of that really helps. So I would say at the beginning, this was like very early last year that I was doing this now. So when we talk about sort of like just over a year ago that I was like fundamentally like kicked everything off, this was even before that. So I would say I did that for a couple of months really. And then in terms of acquiring clients, I think it was, it happens, it's very much, it's not like you will get X number of clients. It's very much dependent on you and how much you're willing to put yourself out there, how much work you're willing to put into your work. Which, as I spoke about before, I really dive deep, and I continue to dive deep for that purpose of making sure that I am speaking to the right people, and I can be confident in terms of going out in terms of my messaging. From then on out, I think, things have happened according to the pace that I've maybe dictated as well. And there have been periods of time, particularly at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, where I actually stepped off work for personal reasons, and made a conscious decision to say, I'm going to step back. But I think that also that's the beauty of the running your own business, for one, but equally coaching in itself, because maybe if you were a product-based company or something where you were supplying a shop or a supermarket, it's very hard to just turn things off as well. But I was able to control how many clients I had, and et cetera, which I needed during that time. So, but now, particularly during lockdown, I've made a conscious decision to say, right, I'm going to thrust back into it, and things have been growing really, really well. So I think, as I say, it's not that it just happens if you decide it's going to happen. It obviously does take work, and it takes commitment, and it takes an understanding of what you need, but it can be done. And it is something that is, you know, a great service and a great lifestyle and a great business, because there is so much flexibility. And in terms of just running a business as well, you know, as I said, you know, I worked in because I was a buyer in my old job, I understand the raw costs of, you know, when you're dealing with a product, you know, you're dealing with, you know, raw materials, you're dealing with production, you're dealing with, you know, everything that goes on around that. You don't have that with something like coaching. You don't have as many overheads, particularly as I work remotely. You know, it's a great business to create in that sense, because you do have so much more flexibility in terms of your work, in terms of when you work, in terms of how much work you create, etc., etc. But that's what I wanted to create. And when it comes back to understanding, like, what do you want, if you are shifting a job, if you are shifting into a new career, if you want to create change, fundamentally for me, it was so important to have that flexibility for a variety of reasons. But yeah, being able to decide, you know, where I work, you know, when I work, and to be able to create a lifestyle around my work, and actually my work be a part of my lifestyle, rather than having my life, so to speak, quote unquote, and then 9 to 5 as a job, Monday to Friday, you know, whereas I didn't enjoy that or whatever. You know, not having those two separate parts of my life was really, really important to me, and almost to like intertwine them so that I could create the life that I really want to create. And actually, ultimately now, I am moving and going into a new stage of my life, where I've packed up my flat, I'm renting it out, I'm moving on to the next stage. I'm probably going to go traveling, well, not traveling, but move abroad somewhere. Obviously, all COVID dependent. But it's not having any impact on my work. I don't even have to think about my work. I can literally just take my laptop with me and go, which is the beauty of it. But equally, I've created that, and it just demonstrates that, you know, despite all the challenges and everything that, you know, I've kind of been through over the past few years, doesn't mean you still can't create what you want to create if you make the decision that, you know, I just need to find a way. And there always is a way. You just have to commit to it.
If I hear you well, you said that if you're really willing to have something and to create something that you're passionate about, you can do it. But how don't you think like, oh, maybe it was a mistake? How do you keep going?
I think that's where, you know, part of my coaching does come into mentoring as well, because, you know, there is, and it can sound, you know, like great and really unrealistic, that I'm sat here and going, you know, you can create the change. I fundamentally believe that is the case, but there is also a pragmatism behind that says, okay, well, you've got to think sensibly about this. It doesn't mean that just overnight you can create the change. It doesn't mean that overnight you can just create a business, a successful business. Like, that isn't realistic in most cases. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. And it doesn't mean that, you know, if you keep committing to it, that it's not possible. But that's where the fundamental work comes in, of understanding, why are you doing this? What do you want to create? And always having that goal in place, and start thinking, okay, well, what are the stepping stones to get there? Rather than going from 0 to this is my goal, you know, okay, in 6 months' time, where do we want to be then? And then in 12 months' time, where do we want to be then? And what's the 5-year goal? That's why I think like these fundamental benchmarks are really, really important. Like, but your benchmarks, no one else's benchmarks. To say, okay, well, in 6 months' time, maybe you don't leave your career straight away. Maybe in the next 6 months, you spend a lot of time in understanding, what do you want? And how can you start creating those things? How can you maybe do a course on the back of, you know, in your spare time, in the weekends, in the evenings, to facilitate that change? Or maybe you start setting up your business and get things running so that you've already got a foundation for when you do move on, you know. But equally, you know, about your money and things like that, again, that comes from taking control. And it comes from also, like, what are your priorities? You know, if you've got a load of money and actually you know, your base level is now like 3 meals out a week, 5 holidays a year, you know, spending loads of clothes, you know, buying a coffee out every single day. Where are you spending your money? And actually, are those things fundamentally important to where you want to be in 5 years? Are they really fulfilling you, or are they just a little bit of a nicety and a bit of a mask, really, and a bit of an initial hit of pleasure rather than creating that real sense of deep fulfillment? So I think that really fundamentally comes back to priorities. Where do you want to prioritize your time? Where do you want to prioritize your money? And what are the goals? And are you actually working towards them? You know, things like, you know, even just having a PT or a coach or whatever. You know, some of the stuff you could go and do it by yourself. You could go and do exercise by yourself. You could go and do free webinars or read a self-development book, or you could pay money to do it, you know, and money to have somebody push you much more, money for someone to help you get better results quicker, you know, someone to help you go deeper and more advanced. And that actually is where the results come in. But that is your priority. And if it's not your priority, you're not going to spend money on it. But if it really is, why are you not investing in that? And why are you happy to invest in as I say, loads of clothes or a holiday, or, you know, going out for meals with people that you're not particularly bothered about seeing? You know, where are your priorities? And I think sometimes our priorities get so warped because of the world around us. And I think actually that's what has been really nice about lockdown, is that a lot of people I've spoken to have started to recognize their priorities and seeing, okay, I want to move house now. I want to change my job. I know that I need to do more of X, Y, Z. And that is a priority, but because of the hustle and bustle of life, I've been neglecting it. But with lockdown, they've had more time that they've not been neglecting it. They've realized that's what I enjoy. So it's just about listening to, you know, if you are in that stage where you're struggling, it's about reconnecting to your why, reconnecting, why are you even doing this? But then equally, like, as I said, thinking about it pragmatically and creating those smaller stepping stones to help yourself get there.
Do you listen to your own advices? Because I know I am one of those. I am very good at giving advices. So if my friend comes and they're like, oh, I'm stuck in this, I'll be very good at giving a lot of advices. But if I have to take those advice and make them happen to me, I'm terrible at it. So it seems like you're talking about kind of yourself. Like, it's like you're giving advice that you already experienced yourself. Is that true?
100%. Yeah. And I think that in a fundamental way is that I sometimes work through like certain things I maybe put in my newsletter, certain things I put on, say, my social media, certain things I even say to my clients. Sometimes I do reflect on the words, and, you know, if I'm not being true to them, how do I expect my clients to be true to them? How do I expect other people to be true to them? So, sometimes it does really help, and it really works. You know, it's just the same as like journaling or anything. If you're writing things down, it really reflects on the power of, I know there are a lot of studies out there about the power of writing and the power of by hand rather than necessarily typing, and because of the slow nature of it, how it clicks into your brain. But equally, that really does help for me as well. And I, you know, as I mentioned before, the more work I do on myself, the more I'm in a better position to support other people. And, you know, this is where the point of you first really comes in. You know, I do put myself first in many, many ways, because I know that when I am at my best, and whether that means going to do some exercise in the morning and I'm in a better state of mind, whether that means, you know, getting an early night, whether that means really doing work that fulfills me and pushing myself on there, when I'm in that state, I know that I can be my best for my family, for my friends. I can be my best for my clients. I can give them, you know, the very best of me when I'm coaching them. And I think that is where it is fundamentally so important for me to sometimes listen to those own bits of advice. And I will look back sometimes through my own Instagram and read some words. And I think it's just about, I mean, I'm a real word geek. I did English for my degree, so I'm a big fan of literature. But I do think words have a really powerful force behind them. but yeah, and so yeah, in essence I do, but it doesn't mean that I still have a coach. I have other sort of self-development things that I have fundamentally are now rooted in my routine because I know how much they help me. And that is an individual thing, that's an individual choice. It's about recognizing what is it that you need as an individual to support your own development, to support your own mindset, to create that space, to allow you to put yourself first. And whether that is about meditation or having a massage or just creating that space that you need without it being stressful as well, because sometimes there is a huge part of self-development which is like, okay, I need to do my meditation, I need to do my exercise, I need to do this, and it becomes just another to-do list. So it's about how can you look at your whole life and really start thinking about how can I slow it down, and rather than just throwing a load of stuff in, sometimes it is about taking things out as well.
In a few words, how do you set yourself apart? Because I feel like it's a very competitive world, life coaching. I know you're specializing, so you narrowed your clientele and what you do, which is maybe a way of actually setting yourself apart to have like a niche. But in a few words, like how would you describe yourself as being different?
I think it's so important because, like you say, there are so many life coaches and business coaches and mentors out there. Fundamentally at the core of it, my work is about helping, individuals really create change. And that change, a lot of people think about change as like a career or a lifestyle. It doesn't necessarily mean all any of those things. It could just be a shift in mindset. But it is about understanding your capabilities and the fact that all the limitations that you're placing upon yourself aren't necessarily there, and how can we overcome those limitations regardless of the challenges that are going on around us in life. And so I really my main focus is on helping people to become unstuck. It's about creating that stress-free, and that's why it's really important for me, those words, fulfilled life. It's about creating fulfillment, creating change regardless of life's challenges. So typically, my clients are early 30s, maybe in their 30s, typically, but not exclusively. But I think that's at a period of time in their life, which is quite common to a lot of people, where they've trundled along with what society's expected of them. They've done as I said before, for myself, they've done the university, they've done the grad scheme, whatever, they've done a few years of work, and then they've just sort of been like, is this it? I'm not particularly happy, and what's now looking ahead? And also at that time there's a lot of expectation about marriage. There's you're at a point of your career where you're doing really well, so maybe you don't necessarily want to step away from that. There's expectations around babies, and actually maybe I don't want to leave my career because of the maternity pay, all of these sort of different expectations. So it's about how can I help you to not feel like you're just leaving things behind and leaving progress and leaving opportunity behind, but actually create more opportunity, but equally create more fulfillment as well. So that is at the core of who I help, I guess.
Yeah. Lastly, what's next? Are you going to write a book because you like words and you studied?
I love that. That is in the goal list for a few years' time, I think.
Yeah.
What is next? So next is growing you first a bit more. So there's going to be more courses that come up this year, and really focusing on my one-to-one clients over the next few months. And there will be more things, as I say, coming for you first, whether that's webinars and things. I have another webinar on the second Tuesday of July. So I will always have a webinar, a You First webinar on the second Tuesday of every July, which next month is the 14th. The 14th of July, and that's at 6 p.m. So I'll be releasing details about that over the next few days. And but to keep up to date with anything that's going on, you can sign up to my newsletter, which is either on my website, which is www.fionamosshealth.com, or via my Instagram, the link in my bio. You can sign up there as well, and then you'll be kept up to date with everything that's going on, any courses, any webinars, and just my little short weekly blog that I have that goes out.
I always ask, do you feel successful? And what is success for you? I forgot to ask you that, and I really want
It's
to know.
interesting, isn't it? Because, yeah, I do. I feel so successful because there are many different metrics of success. There are, your financial success. There are sort of very stereotypical success, whether you hit all those lifestyle benchmarks along the way, whether that's getting married, whether that's children. But equally, there's professional success, but equally there's just real innate success. And I think that comes with fulfillment. Now I've really found what I love doing, and I fundamentally adore what I do. And I know that I can create whatever I want to create now. And I think more than anything, more than any financial success, more than anything like that, which all of it's important. But for me, the success comes where I feel truly aligned to what I do, and I feel like I'm actually helping people. And I'm so grateful for all of the different sort of turbulent times that I've had over, many years. And actually the fact that I have been able to draw from them and draw strength from them, and come out the other side. And I would say that the very fact that I've come out the other side and I'm in a state where I do feel that I can move forward, and I do enjoy my work, and I get up every day and excited about it. I feel like that's more successful than any other success.
That's amazing. I think I'm really happy for you that you actually found your own voice and your path. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. It was really lovely to chat.
Voila, that's the end of this episode, and I want to thank Fiona for telling her story. Please share this episode on your social media, and it might reach someone who feels stuck with their job, their choices, and who will feel inspired to follow their dreams. Don't forget, life is short. Live it to the fullest.